Hey yo everybody, this is another installment of Finding Sensibility, where we take positive or inspirational quotes and see if we can make them work in our day-to-day life or if they might just be a product of the times. Today we have a quote from a French writer, and we're going to spend a little more time actually talking about the quote rather than the man. So, jumping right in, our quote for today: if men could regard the events of their own lives with more open minds, they would frequently discover that they did not really desire the things they failed to obtain. Andre Maury. I probably screwed that name up. It's kind of the best I can do, so I apologize. It's a bit of a long quote, so we're going to be revisiting it and kind of breaking it down piece by piece. But my initial thoughts are there are two ways this could be taken. And we're going to break it down into a future context and a past context. So, one more time. If men could regard the events of their own lives with more open minds, they would frequently discover that they did not really desire the things they failed to obtain. Starting with the weaker perspective, in which I kind of feel like this could be a negative context. To me, this sounds like validation by hindsight, where you're able to look back at a lot of the choices you made and assume that things just turned out for the best. Oh, thank goodness I didn't actually take that job across the country. I think I'm better off doing what I'm doing now. Thank goodness I didn't drive that route home to work. There was an accident I might have been in. All of this kind of thing, where you can look back and validate the choices you made because ultimately you don't know what could have happened. Things could have been a lot worse, absolutely. But there's no way to really know that for sure, and so we assume it with hindsight that ultimately, because I did the things I did, this is the best way things could be. So, we're about to have company. So, that validation by hindsight kind of can skew a lot of the reality that things could have actually been so much better if you took that job across the country. Maybe you wouldn't have been in the accident if you drove that route home. Maybe you could have actually been the person to put on the brakes. Things could have worked out infinitely better or infinitely worse. So I think it's very tempting to consider this a method of hindsight rather than future perspective. This is one of my biggest personal challenges. Almost before anything else, I'm two things. I'm a wisher and I'm a dreamer. Because of that, I think this quote is something I tend to struggle a lot with. If men could regard the events of their own lives with more open minds, they would frequently discover that they did not really desire the things they failed to obtain. So we've talked about the past perspective, hindsight being your best friend. Now we're going to talk about how to look ahead with that open mind. And this is somewhat similar to things that we've talked about in the past, kind of diminishing expectations. But what I want to talk about today, and the way I feel that this is truly a positive quote or a positive idea, is more about self-reliance. Ultimately, whatever we do in life hinges on our own decisions. You can't hold somebody else accountable for your disappointments or your failures. A few people have asked me about my board on the wall, and not the content of it, but the significance to why I have these things separated. My goals are things that I achieve only on my own. I make the decision to take the time or make the time to do these things or not. And if I fail at achieving my goals, that's entirely on me. Even though I could very easily blame someone else. My dreams are outside of myself. They are what I feel gives me a purpose, what I strive for, what I desire most above anything else. But I can't make them happen on my own. So when we talk about hindsight, we're able to look back and justify that we didn't really want the things we missed out on because I ended up doing so much better anyway. Look at how much better I'm doing. From a future perspective, we don't quite fit that bill. It's much more about staying malleable and staying dynamic and allowing your wants and your desires to change. I'm not saying it's easy. I am terrible about this. But I recognize that this is what causes me most of my duress, most of my pain, most of my disappointments come from not being able to move around with the changes that come my way. There are two sides to this idea, and one of them can be used harmfully and the other can be used very beneficially. And if you're using this idea to validate all of your hindsights, to convince yourself you never made a mistake or you never made a bad decision, that's not exactly a healthy frame of mind. If you can figure out how to keep an open mind and change with the times and go with the flow and all these other goofy little things that people say, but not only change yourself with it, but change your goals. Update your goals for every new environment and every new situation you find yourself in. That way you can actually obtain them rather than be frustrated by never really getting them and having to rely on that hindsight. This is not easy to do. And like I said, I struggle with it all the time. But I'm going to continue to work at it, and I hope you do too. Until next time, stay tuned and stay real.